Two world religions have shaped Africa for over a millennium and a half. Today, more than half of Africa's population of over 1.5 billion people identify as Christian or Muslim. Their influence is woven into the fabric of African societies, politics, and daily life. Christianity arrived in Africa during the 1st or early 2nd century AD. Islam arrived during the lifetime of the Prophet Muhammad, who died in 632 AD. Both religions have therefore existed on the continent for more than 13 centuries, profoundly affecting history and way of life across the continent. The framework of Africa's triple heritage, encompassing indigenous, Islamic, and Western traditions, was articulated by scholar Ali Mazrui in the 1980s. According to this framework, some African states were primarily products of purely indigenous forces. Some were products of interaction between indigenous and Islamic elements, and others were outgrowths of interaction between indigenous and Western ideas. Both Islam and Christianity are religions of the book, deriving their doctrinal authority from their scriptures, the Quran and the Bible respectively. Traditional African religions, by contrast, produced no written works but derived their authority from oral history, custom, practice, and the power of priests and kings. This lack of scriptures led to the assumption by some European missionaries and explorers that people in Africa were not capable of proper religious observance, though many were also struck by the intense spirituality of Africans they encountered. Christianity entered Africa during the 1st or early 2nd century AD, 5 centuries ahead of Islam. During this early period, Christianity became well established within the borders of the Roman Empire in Africa and expanded beyond these borders, particularly along the Nile into northeastern Africa. A large number of dioceses were established in North Africa, in Egypt, and along the Nile as far south as what is now Ethiopia. The early church in North Africa, under leaders such as Augustine, Cyprian, and Origen, had a prominent share in the development of Christian theology. In the 4th century, King Ezana of Aksum converted to Christianity, making Aksum one of the earliest Christian states in the world. This tradition continues today through the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, which is among the oldest continuous Christian traditions in existence. Egyptian monasticism expanded from this continent into Asia Minor, Arabia, and Europe during this early period. The Coptic Church in Egypt and Ethiopia used vernacular languages in Christian literature and liturgy, which was likely a significant factor in its survival. The Christian Kingdom of Ethiopia maintained its faith through centuries of pressure from Islamic forces. In 1541, it was only just saved from being overcome by Islamic military forces when 400 Portuguese soldiers under the command of Christopher da Gama came to the rescue. Christians in the Kingdom of Nubia maintained their faith up to the 17th century, after which Christianity disappeared in the region, likely partly due to the acceptance of Islam by the monarchs. Islam appeared in Africa during the lifetime of Prophet Muhammad. The first Muslims appeared in Africa in 615 AD when a group of Meccans took refuge in Aksum, a Christian kingdom in Ethiopia. By 640 AD, Arab forces had conquered Egypt for Islam. From Egypt, Islam spread westward through North Africa and southward along the Nile. The spread of Islam through Africa followed a distinct pattern. It did not proceed by conquest alone. Many Africans converted voluntarily, attracted by the simplicity of Islamic monotheism, the equality of believers, and the commercial advantages of membership in a vast trading network. From the 8th to the 16th centuries, Islam penetrated steadily through commerce into West Africa. The kings of the Ghana and Mali empires converted to Islam, though they often maintained traditional religious practices as well. In North Africa, Egypt, and Sudan, Islam replaced Christianity as the dominant religion. This was partly due to conquest, partly due to voluntary conversion, and partly due to the social and commercial advantages that came with adopting the faith. By the 11th century, North Africa and Egypt were predominantly Muslim. The cities of Cairo, Tunis, and Fez became centers of Islamic learning and culture, attracting scholars from across the Islamic world. The arrival of Islam and Christianity had profound effects on African civilizations. Both religions brought new languages, new forms of education, and new connections to broader worlds. In West Africa, the Ghana and Mali empires became major centers of Islamic learning. The University of Timbuktu, established in the 14th century under the patronage of Mansa Musa, attracted scholars from across the Islamic world. Its libraries contained hundreds of thousands of manuscripts covering astronomy, mathematics, law, and theology. The Kingdom of Kongo, as discussed in a previous video, adopted Christianity voluntarily in 1491. The Congolese created a uniquely African form of Catholicism, blending Christian doctrines with local traditions and producing distinctive Christian art. Both Islam and Christianity also brought new forms of government and law. Islamic law, known as Sharia, was adopted in many parts of West and East Africa. Christian concepts of law and governance were introduced through European contact and colonization. Some scholars argue that the adoption of Islam or Christianity contributed to the development of larger, more centralized states in Africa. The shared religion created common identity across diverse ethnic groups and facilitated trade and diplomacy. However, both religions also disrupted African societies. They challenged traditional religious practices, sometimes through force or coercion. They introduced new social hierarchies and, in some cases, justified the enslavement of non-believers. The Atlantic slave trade was, in part, justified by Christian arguments about the conversion of non-believers. Similarly, Islamic slave raids in East Africa captured millions of people over several centuries. The colonization of Africa in the 19th century brought Christianity to the continent in a more systematic way than ever before. Christian missionaries established schools, hospitals, and churches across the continent. By the early 20th century, the number of African Christians had grown significantly. In 1910, approximately 9% of Africa's population was Christian. By 1970, this had risen to approximately 40%. However, the spread of Christianity was not always welcomed. Many Africans resented the association of Christianity with colonialism. In some cases, resistance movements incorporated traditional religious practices as a form of cultural and political opposition to European rule. The role of Christian missions in education was particularly significant. Mission schools became the primary institutions of formal education in many parts of Africa. They taught Western languages, science, and history, often replacing indigenous forms of knowledge. Mission hospitals also played an important role in healthcare. They provided treatment for diseases that had long afflicted African populations, including malaria, sleeping sickness, and leprosy. In some cases, they offered care that was otherwise unavailable. Islam also expanded during the colonial period. British and French colonial authorities in West Africa often preferred to work with Muslim leaders, whom they considered more sophisticated and easier to govern. This gave Islam a privileged position in some colonial territories. The result of this complex history was a religious landscape that reflected both the legacy of colonization and African agency. Africans adopted, adapted, and transformed the religions brought to them, creating distinctive forms of Christianity and Islam that reflected local cultures and traditions. One of the most significant developments in African Christianity was the emergence of independent African churches. These churches broke away from Western missionary control in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. The first African-led independent church was the Native Baptist Church, founded in 1888. The Ethiopian Church followed in 1892, rejecting missionary control and asserting African leadership of the faith. The independent church movement reflected a desire for religious freedom and a rejection of racial discrimination within the missionary churches. Many of these churches incorporated African traditions into their worship, including drumming, dancing, and the use of indigenous languages. Some independent churches in South Africa came to be known as Zionist churches, representing a distinctive blend of Christianity and African spirituality. Today, there are over 8,000 independent African churches on the continent, with millions of adherents. The rise of African independent churches, AICs, was a direct response to the racism and paternalism of Western missionaries. These churches provided a space for African leadership and self-determination in matters of faith. The success of these independent churches demonstrates the capacity of Africans to adapt and transform Christianity to meet their own needs and preserve their cultural identity, while still identifying as followers of Jesus Christ. Islamic practice in Africa has also taken distinctive forms. The spread of Islam in sub-Saharan Africa was accompanied by the spread of Sufi brotherhoods, mystical orders that emphasized inner spiritual development and community. The Qadiriya, Tijaniya, and Muridiya brotherhoods have played a major role in West African Islam. Their leaders, known as marabouts, often served as mediators, advisors, and spiritual guides to the general population, wielding significant political and social influence. The Muridiya Brotherhood, founded by Amadou Bamba in the 1880s, became a major force in Senegal. It provided a sense of community and identity for its members and offered an alternative to colonial authority, emphasizing spiritual resistance rather than armed rebellion. In the 19th century, Islamic reform movements emerged in West Africa. Leaders such as Usman Dan Fodio in northern Nigeria criticized the mixing of Islam with traditional practices and called for a return to pure Islam. Usman Dan Fodio's movement led to the establishment of the Sokoto Caliphate in 1809, which became one of the largest states in pre-colonial Africa. The Sokoto Caliphate was a theocratic state that sought to implement Islamic law across its territories. It became a center of Islamic learning and scholarship, rivaling Timbuktu in its importance. In East Africa, Islam spread along the coast through trade. Swahili city-states, such as Kilwa, Mombasa, and Zanzibar, became centers of Islamic civilization, with mosques and learning that rivaled those in the Middle East. Ali A. Musri's concept of Africa's triple heritage helps explain the cultural complexity of modern Africa. According to this framework, African identity is shaped by the interaction of indigenous traditions, Islamic civilization, and Western influences. The African Renaissance of the 21st century represents a return to the roots, a reassertion of the values and cultures that were submerged during the colonial period. At the same time, there's a recognition that indigenous values and cultures are no longer sufficient by themselves. One important aspect of the African heritage is the role of women in society. Islamic and Western influences have both contributed to a decline in the status of women, which had previously enjoyed significant autonomy and authority in many African societies. The triple heritage also highlights the importance of religion in African political life. Both Islam and Christianity have been used to justify political authority and to legitimize state power. In some cases, religious leaders have challenged the state and demanded political change. The triple heritage also demonstrates the resilience of African culture. Despite centuries of religious and cultural influence from outside, indigenous traditions have persisted. In many cases, they have been incorporated into Christianity and Islam rather than replaced by them. The relationship between Africa and the broader Muslim world and Western Christian world continues to be a central dynamic in African politics. Africa's strategic location, its resources, and its demographics make it a crucial arena for global religious competition and cooperation. Christianity and Islam have both had a profound impact on Africa's religious composition. By 2020, approximately 43% of Africa's population was Christian and 41% was Muslim. The remaining 16% were mostly followers of traditional African religions, while a small minority identified with other religious groups or no religion. Africa is now home to some of the world's fastest-growing Christian and Muslim populations. The center of gravity of both religions has shifted away from their traditional heartlands toward the global south. Africa is, in many ways, the future of both Christianity and Islam. Christian and Muslim communities in Africa continue to coexist, sometimes peacefully and sometimes in conflict. Religious leaders have at times been at the forefront of reconciliation and peace building. At other times, religious divisions have contributed to violence and instability. The story of Islam and Christianity in Africa is one of both continuity and change. Both religions have been present for over a millennium. Both have been shaped by their African contexts and have, in turn, shaped African cultures and societies. Africa is not simply a recipient of religious traditions from elsewhere. It is a source of religious innovation and vitality. The independent churches of Africa, the Sufi Brotherhoods, and the reform movements have all contributed to global religious traditions. The question, how did Islam and Christianity shape African history, has no single answer. The answer depends on which time period, which region, and which community you examine. What is clear is that both religions have been central to the African experience for more than 1,000 years. Subscribe to Golden Empire Tales for more stories of Africa's legendary kingdoms.